character, values. I have had the occasion to be associated with Bhaktivedanta Purna Maharaj and their Bhaktivedanta Academy here, and they make a very strong point that our top priority in our school is to instill values, to instill character based on values. So here again, Srila Prabhupada is also pointing out that the primary requirement or the primary goal of any educational system, and let's go back to the purposes of ISKCON, to systematically educate people in spiritual knowledge and the techniques of spiritual life to correct the imbalance of values. So the goal of education, fundamental goal of education, is not simply to acquire some knowledge. And you in these courses, you're acquiring, yes, a lot of knowledge and information, but the goal is to create and to develop the values and character that this knowledge is meant to support. Without those values, without that character, then in one sense, it is either just book learning without any realization, or it could even be a vehicle for sense gratification. I'm such a learned person, I'm a great scholar, I can defeat others, I can talk in big words, I can, to just build one's ego, which means that their value has been distorted. The true value of that education has been neglected in favor of a materialistic value. So here we find in this letter that Srila Prabhupada is pointing out how the children educated in a Gurukula system will come out as topmost citizens. Okay, so he's referring to, again, in this context, loyalty, truthfulness, cleanliness, honesty, these qualities he is describing in terms of the character of a citizen in a society, and for us, we are citizens in one sense of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. So we are also being educated in these various formats to develop these qualities that make us good citizens, good members, good devotees. So I was curious because that was the only place where I really found Srila Prabhupada talking about loyalty as a quality of a devotee. But there are other places where we find the qualities of a devotee being described. And as we were mentioning in the beginning, a close, almost synonym to loyalty is fidelity. Fidelity has a similar connotation. Generally, when we speak of loyalty, we're speaking about loyalty to individuals, loyalty to institutions, whereas fidelity is mostly seen in terms of loyalty, in one sense, or adherence to values and to specific principles. That is fidelity. So let's look at that, because Srila Prabhupada does use that a bit more. So then I was looking, okay, well, where does he use that term? Let me see if I can find it here. Okay. I'll get back to that. Well, that was an interesting one too. Okay, where am I here? Okay. It's okay. Now I had this up and now I can't find it. All right. Anyway, it's in the Srimad Bhagavatam, and it's it's probably hidden behind this thing here. Let me see if I can bring this down. a little bit. Okay. Yes, there it is. Okay. So here we find the term fidelity. Okay. So this is Srimad Bhagavatam. It's the first canto, 16th chapter, 26 verses 26 to 30. And there's a whole list of qualities: satyam, shocham, daya, chanti, tyaga, santosha, arjavam, samad, dhama. All of these different qualities are being described. These altogether, these are listed 40 different qualities and many other transcendental qualities which are eternally present and never to be separated from him. So when we speak of qualities and values, then the reservoir of perfect quality and perfect value is, of course, Sri Krishna. So these are now being described in relationship to Krishna. And here we find Srila Prabhupada using the term fidelity. But if we go into the synonyms, where does he, what is he talking about? And we look at it here, we'll find that the word that he translates as fidelity, let's see where we have it here. Okay, we have, first he translates stairyam as immovability, as you can see here. 34 is immovability. 35 is fidelity. So right after stairyam, we find ashtikyam, or faithfulness. So we're seeing here a progression of Srila Prabhupada's connecting the quality of fidelity to the quality of faithfulness, and particularly in this context, ashtikyam. So that seemed to be a thread which I thought was quite significant, how this quality of fidelity is understood in the context of devotional service to be faithfulness. And faithfulness to what? Faithfulness, ashtikyam. Ashtikyam relates to ashtik, and we have another word, nashtik. So ashtik is basically theism, faithfulness to God, to Krishna. Where else do we find the term ashtikya? We find it in Bhagavad Gita, where we find the qualities of a Brahman. Jnana, was it Jnana Vijnana Ashtikyam? That is described as the qualities of a Brahman. We also find it in Bhagavad Gita, where the different qualities of godly men are described. So here we have a more complete description of qualities. So I was looking at here, well, where does ashtikyam come into this description? And the actual word ashtikyam is not there, but we have here another close word, which is fortitude. Fortitude is another quality which often is connected. Dhriti, fortitude, is another quality that's connected to loyalty. Just to move over into something, mundane. In Central Park, there is a statue that if any of you have visited Central Park in New York City, there's a famous statue that people like to visit of Balto, the husky. So the story of Balto is that there was a epidemic. Now we have, this was a smallpox epidemic in the far reaches of the northern Canadian and American Alaska, and those far areas where people survive on very little. But there was a need for medicine, and a team of dogs, which were the husky dogs are used to pull sleds in that area, was gathered together, and Balto was one of the lead dogs who pulled this sled all the 640 miles to bring these medicines to this community. And under that statute is the terms endurance, fortitude, and intelligence. That this dog, and we'll get back to dogs in a bit, represented these qualities. Because fortitude is another quality that comes with faithfulness and loyalty. If one has fortitude, then he has the capacity to remain loyal, the capacity to remain faithful in despite of many different circumstances. And the Sanskrit word here is dhritta. So we're tying now threads together. We're trying to connect these different values and these different qualities together into a sort of a complementary suite where we have loyalty, we have faithfulness, we have fortitude, and we have, in this way, steadiness, and we have one-pointedness. Because this mood of loyalty, this mood of faithfulness translates into the Vayavya Satmika Buddhi Ekeha Kurunandana. Srila Prabhupada, as an example of, okay, 8 o'clock. Okay, so we have another half an hour. Srila Prabhupada demonstrates, in one sense, this quality of loyalty in his mood towards his spiritual master, our Param Gurudev, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Srila Prabhupada. As we know, our Srila Prabhupada received this initial instruction from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur to preach the Krishna consciousness movement, to spread the Krishna consciousness movement in English in the Western world. And we know how he took that in, and that became his primary value to satisfy that order. And he later on reflects how this particular verse in the Bhagavad Gita of Vyavasayatmaka Buddhi Ekeya Kurunandana is commented on by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur to mean to accept the order of the spiritual master as one's life and soul. So this is the ultimate loyalty. This is the ultimate of loyalty and fidelity. To accept one's service, one's mission, in service to the spiritual master, in service to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga, as one's own very life. As one's very life. What do we value more than our lives? There's nothing that we value more than our own life. And to make the mission of Srila Prabhupada, the mission of the spreading of Krishna consciousness, our service to him as our life and soul, means that we have given it the utmost value. And to remain loyal to that, to remain fixed in that, dhritti, to have fortitude, to have faithfulness, to have fidelity, all of these qualities connect to this position of loyalty and fortitude and making the mission our life and soul. This is the perfection, in one sense, of spiritual value. So I was looking to see, okay, in Sanskrit. What are some Sanskrit terms for being loyal? And again, Google came to my rescue. This Sanskrit dictionary is quite interesting because it contains Monia Williams search. It contains this Opte search, and then McDonald search, Vedic index, and I think if we go down further, well, maybe not here, but I've seen in other terms that it includes our Vedabase. How did Srila Prabhupada translate it? And I was, look at what we find. What's the first term that comes up as loyal? Bhakta. Bhakta. To be devoted, to be attached to be faithful, to be honoring, worshiping, serving. It means to be a bhakta. So in one sense, the quality or the value of being loyal is the quality of being a devotee of Krishna. So tying these threads together a bit more, we find that it's a fundamental value in our Krishna consciousness to be loyal, to be faithful, and to inculcate that fixed determination. And that brings us back to where we find in the Bhagavad Gita, we find that the driti, or fortitude, being fixed, comes as a quality. Then we also have to go to the qualities of a devotee. So I was thinking, okay, we've got the qualities that are of the godly persons that are described, men endowed with divine nature. And then I was thinking, well, what about the 26 qualities of a devotee? So in Chaitanya Charitamrita, this is Madhya Lila, chapter 22, we find Sri Chaitanya describing the qualities of a devotee in this text 78, 80, 81. And these, of course, are elaborated in other places. So here again, we find devotees are merciful, humble, truthful. These are the values for a devotee. They're without material possessions. They perform welfare work for everyone, peaceful, surrendered to Krishna, desireless, indifferent to material acquisitions, fixed in devotional service. Fixed in devotional service. Controlling the 6 bad qualities, eating only much as required, not inebriated, respectful, grave, compassionate, without false prestige, friendly, poetic, expert, and silent, tolerant, forbearing, merciful, well-wishers of every living entity, following the scriptural injunctions. They have no enemies. They are peaceful. So fixed in devotional service, I would suggest that this is the quality that is closest to this value of loyalty. Again, we have here stira being the definition here, stira. So we have stira, we have driti, we have vayavasayatmika buddhi ekeha, and we have nishta. So as we move through the stages of devotional service, we move through the stages of bhakti, we go from the stage of shraddha, which is just the beginning of awakening our faith. And of course, it continues. We begin our sadhu sangha, we begin our bhajana kriya, and then we have to go through anartha nivritti. So anartha nivritti, anartha, I was looking also for what is the Sanskrit for value. And what comes up mostly is artha, that artha is value. So anartha, meaning that which is not valuable, the wrong value, the imbalance of it. Prabhupada talks about the imbalance of values. So to develop the values and the qualities of the devotee, we have to reduce, we have to get rid of the imbalanced values, the inappropriate values, the the values which are actually obstacles. So we go through anartha nivritti and we reach nishta. So we reach this platform of nishta, of fixedness, which is, again, the quality of loyalty, fidelity, and fortitude. So that was what my exploration was of these terms, of these values. I would like to also explore some examples and some areas of conflict, but we do need to give some time. So I thought, why don't we start now with some opening up for questions and comments and reflections on what we've been talking about. Is that okay? I will stop sharing the screen, and there we have here. So I don't know who is someone here. I assume is a host, but if you have some questions or comments, I just unmute yourself, I guess, and shoot away. So, we have anyone out there like to offer a reflection? Yes.
Prabhuji, thanks for the class. I do have a question. So I think for a lot of people who just came into Krishna consciousness, like myself, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Yes.
Okay. So for the people who came into Krishna as a neophyte devotees, a lot of times while they're still engaged in the material world, it seems like often there could be a conflict between the values they hold in the material life and in the spiritual life, and often even their duties could be in conflict, not totally aligned in the two worlds, in the spiritual world and the material world. So what is your best suggestion for those people who do not have their material dharma and spiritual dharma aligned, that's still struggling to make things work at the same time?
Well, clarifying and establishing your values and correcting the imbalance of values. Srila Prabhupada uses this term imbalance. Not that there is no value in our material life. There can be value in our material life when it is balanced with, when it is connected with our spiritual values. So our work is to resolve those conflicts, to bring them into harmony, to bring our material needs and our material duties, our material values into harmony with our spiritual values. And we must do that. If we don't do it, we suffer the consequences. Sometimes it's very difficult because we are conditioned to place a great deal of value on certain material situations. And so if there is a choice between pursuing some spiritual value and some material value that is very, very dear to us, then we may neglect the spiritual values. And we will suffer the consequences. So we have to search to find the harmony, the solution, how we can harmonize our material and spiritual life. And that is the art of Krishna consciousness that is taught by the classes that you're going through, the things that you're learning, how to balance, how to use one's material life for spiritual life, how to bring these things into harmony. But there's no one size fits all in one sense. There'll be different situations, different circumstances which need to be addressed in their own terms. But there's a general principle that is universally applicable, and that is to make Krishna and our service to Krishna and our spiritual life our highest value, our priority. I was listening the other day to a memory of Srila Prabhupada, and I can't remember exactly who was relating it, but he was saying how Srila Prabhupada was speaking to someone and relating how you've had millions of births. Millions of births. Please just consider giving this one birth, this one life, for the service of Krishna. What, just one life out of millions or billions. I think he said billions. There's plenty more to come. If it doesn't work, then you'll have billions more. So, why one life? So that kind of mood. Let me just give this one life to Krishna. Let's make Krishna this time. Let's make Krishna and his service the pumartha, the greatest goal. Prema punartha, pumartha mohan, the greatest of all goals, artha or value, should be to achieve love for Krishna, to have love of Krishna, to be in love with Krishna, to be fully in love with Krishna. That should be our value, our goal, where we want to go. And then we examine other things and see, of course, we have to live, and we have the demands of our bodies, demands of our minds. We cannot artificially stop the conditioning that we are in just by denying it. We do have to satisfy to some extent. So therefore, the system of bhakti is given to us how we can combine our satisfaction of at least to some extent, our eating and our sleeping and our family life, etc., with the service of Krishna. But there'll be various times where we want things. We have these values that we've grown up with, and we have instilled. And this is the time to clarify that, and to see, well, is it real? Do I really want that? What do I really want? And then make adjustments. So it's a work. It's what we have to do. This is the process of anartha nivritti. I don't know. These are just general responses to what is often a very specific problem and issue. So I hope that is something.
Yeah,
Hare
thanks. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada's quote is always so classical.
So, any other questions, comments?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Yes.
Can I speak?
Yes, certainly.
Okay. Thank you so much for the class, Prabhu, and thank you for the time you've taken for giving us association. I understand very clearly now that obviously loyalty means that under any circumstance, we never give up the service of our spiritual master. And obviously when spiritual master has confidence, then he also delivers Krishna to us. So, but Prabhupada never mentioned the word loyalty, but he mentioned the word chastity a lot. And loyalty and chastity, according to me, I'm understanding would be the same thing. And chastity doesn't just apply to women, it also applies to men. I mean, we saw how Sita Devi was so chaste, but we find a lot of other men were also chaste. And I think Prabhupada used this word so often in all his lectures. And, you know, I'm just wondering, am I understanding it's the same meaning, chastity meaning loyalty?
Thank you. I hadn't considered that, and I think you're correct that it is very, very similar. There is an additional factor when we speak of chastity in respect of male-female relationships, because then you enter into the idea of chastity in terms of dedication of one's relationship, one's intimate relationship to a specific person. So there's a certain additional element, but I think the fundamental idea is there. And as you said, Srila Prabhupada has used the term chastity, I believe. I haven't researched that in terms of connection to our gurus. He has, I know at least one instance where Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu used this analogy. He used this term, where he, as you may have, those of you who have studied in Chaitanya Charitamrita, there is some sequence where one devotee, Venkatabhata, was spending time with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Puri and wanted to discuss Srimad Bhagavatam. But Gauranga Mahaprabhu didn't really encourage him very much. But still, as a very exalted devotee, he continued to associate with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But on the side, he was doing he was a very highly learned Sanskrit scholar. So he was doing his Sanskrit work, and he was compiling a commentary on Srimad Bhagavatam. And he wanted to present this to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And he approached him and he began to describe, well, Sridhar Swami, and Sridhar Swami is the first Vaishnav commentator on the Srimad Bhagavatam. He's considered to be the foundational commentator. Sridhar Swami's comments are sometimes a little hard to follow, or he gave some description of Sridhar. So I have compiled a new commentary I'd like to share with you. And then Mahaprabhu's response was that I consider one who does not follow the Swami to be like a prostitute, so unchaste. So that is another, at least one place where I can see that how the concept of chastity is being applied to the concept of loyalty or fidelity, and because one could argue that, well, Venkatabhata was faithful. He was faithful to the Bhagavatam, but he was diminishing. He was compromising the position of Guru, Sridhar Swami in this case. So that element of chastity, I've heard this, for us, for the disciples of Srila Prabhupada, and for you, the grand disciples and followers of Srila Prabhupada, our chastity, because in one sense, our connection with Guru and with Guru's mission and Guru's service is a kind of marriage. It's a it reminds me of a incident in you may have heard in Poland, where there was a court case brought by, I think it was the Catholic Church or some Catholic people, but brought a case against ISKCON or Hare Krishna movement as being just destructive to the values of Polish society. And they argued, one of the arguments presented in the court was, look at their God, look at their Krishna. He was he had 16,000, more than 16,000 wives. Look at him. What a kind of person. No chastity. And the lawyer representing the devotees was given the counter argument. And so he asked the representative, or there were some nuns, I think, in presence, or whoever was, so tell me, in your movement, how many nuns there are? And there's thousands, millions. And what is one of the vows? What do they take when they accept their order? To be the bride of Christ. So your Christ has millions of wives. So in this way, the argument was defeated and the case was thrown out. So chastity, yes. We are our relationship with Krishna is like that as well. And our relationship with our Guru has that element of chastity. Thank you. That was very nice. Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhu. I also meant it as Hari Guru Vaishnava Bhagavad Gita, being, chaste to these 4 things, which are so important for us. Thank you so much. That's very enlightening. Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
So we have a few more minutes. Any other questions or comments?
Prabhuji, so many times we hear about this word anartha. So it had a very profound effect in my heart today, that has no value. So it would be more easier for me to leave my anarthas aside now, because it has no value.
No value.
Thank you so much for that. And you were saying that you will come back to the dogs. Some story you were telling.
Well, we don't have much time, but I want maybe we have another session, I believe, and we can do more with that. Is it the same group for the second session?
Yes, yes, same.
Okay, but just I had a few many examples, you see, because I have examples of people who switch their loyalties as devotees. I have examples of people who maintain their loyalty in spite of what they probably should have done. But take the example of Bhishma. Bhishma Dev chose his loyalty to Duryodhana and the Kauravas. He chose his loyalty to them over his devotion to Krishna. Of course, and the results we see, the consequences. So choosing, one's loyalties and choosing the choice of which value to pursue when we reach a conflict. The first thing is, can we bring them into harmony? And of course, Krishna is the perfect example. We have Yudhisthira, who had, not only he was truthful, but he was loyal to his truthfulness. His truthfulness was like something that he valued so much that he would do everything to maintain his truthfulness. He was so loyal to that value. So you can have loyalty to a value as well. And Krishna asked him to give up that and to tell a lie. But he gave Yudhisthira a opportunity to harmonize those two values, his ultimate value, which was the service of Krishna, with his value, his loyalty to truthfulness, by this, what was it?
Ashwatthama.
The elephant. So in this way, he was able to harmonize to some extent. And then we have other examples. Hanuman, his loyalty and chastity. So Lakshman and his loyalty to Sita and Ram, to the extent he gave up everything of his own, valuing himself to simply serve them. And chastity comes into this as well, in the sense that he was so loyal and chaste to that service that he never even gazed upon, he never looked upon Mother Sita, but only served her feet. So there are a number of examples like that. So, Hare Krishna. Now we have reached the end of the time, and we should end on time, I think, is appropriate. So, Prashanta?
Yes.
There's some closing formalities?
No formalities. No formalities, but yes, I was hearing your class, very wonderful, reminding us of the definition of values and the importance of values in general. I was very interesting how you pointed to the purposes of ISKCON. Yes, very important. So definitely, and when we talk of education, knowledge, skills, values, if we skip the values, we've got nothing. If our character is not good, what can we teach others? So, and this is part of the transformational aspect of Krishna consciousness. There are different aspects to Krishna consciousness, but the transformational aspect is a primary aspect. Prabhupada chose in his preface to the Srimad Bhagavatam, he put that verse, that Vag Visargo Janataga Viplavo. He uses that word, Viplava, the revolution. So changing one's values, upgrading one's values, acquiring values, this is part of the Viplava, the revolution, which is supposed to take place in all the individuals. So we value our value classes, and we're very fond of them. And we are trying to meditate on that during the day, during the week. We spend 1 week per value. So thank you so much to take us through this voyage on fidelity, loyalty, connecting it to faithfulness, bringing it back to ashtikyam. That was very interesting, which basically means faithfulness to the Shastra and faithfulness to Krishna as the essence of what a living entity is supposed to be. We are supposed to be astik, followers of the Vedas, followers of Krishna. And as we saw with the question of Yaji, the great difficulty is conflicting values. So you addressed that as well. Thank you so much. We are looking forward to having you next, Saturday. It's on Monday and Saturday we're having these classes. So we have you again on Saturday, and we are looking forward to your association. Please bring us back more understanding. We wanted a little bit more focus next time on our faithfulness towards Srila Prabhupada.
Okay.
So,
all right, well, we'll try to do that. By the way, you just, interestingly, you were talking about essence, and in the Sanskrit dictionary that I was mentioning, that is actually has also Veda-based search. The values of life is described, you can look this up, in Srimad Bhagavatam 3:15-23. Srila Prabhupada defines Sara, which means essence, as values of life. So, all right, thank you.
And Krishna's one name is Saram.
Yes.
Thank you
so much.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. All right.
Hare Krishna.
Haribo.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai Hare Krishna.
Nishya kripa sindhubhya vacha pattanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Ananta koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki